During our test of the incubators, one of the important things is that you have to find the center point of your mattress, and then you have to divide it into the 4 quadrants and find the center point of each quadrant for the placement of sensors. But in order to make that easier for us, FLUKE has been so wonderful as into creating us this little piece of material, which is a little bit big for our test model here today, so I have to just fold it over. But in general, most of your incubators, it will be the exact size for it, showing us the center of the unit and our 4 quadrants. So for the 4 quadrants, we just have to get the idea of where the centers are. Okay. And then also they are marked for the different temperature sensors, T1, 2, 3, 4, and T5. And then also the placement of our unit that needs to come in the incubator. So firstly, what we're going to do now is we're first going to place our unit as shown on the mat. Then you'll see on the unit we have these little pillars that can come out. Then we flip over and we use them for placement of our sensors, of the different sensors. They just keep them in position for us. Okay. So starting with the sensors, T1, you can see that T1 has got a red logo next to it. So what we do is we find T1, you'll see the red on it, and you will also see that it is a temperature probe. The reason I show you that you must read temperature probe is that we have different probes available here. We have sound probes, humidity probes, airflow probes, and temperature probes. And on some of them, the color coding might be the same. So this is red going to red. And T1, as we saw, T1. So what you do is you place the sensor inside your little stand and you put it in position. If we go for T2, we see that's a yellow one. So just make sure we put it the right way around. We take a stand and put it in position. T3, which is the white one. Just put it on the stand and connect it. T4. And now you'll see that we do not have any stands left, and we still have a T5. On the picture here, you'll see that T5 actually goes into the center hole there, which is supposed to be equal to the center pin or the center of your mattress. Those are your temperature probes. Now, when we do measure incubators, we make use of these smaller temperature sensors. But when we're going to do a overhead warmer, we're making use of different sensors. You'll see that in your bag you have, or in your kit, you have a separate bag with 5 of these metal discs. So what will happen is you will place this in the same spots, color-coded as the previous ones, and your overhead lights will now heat up this plug. And then once that plug reaches stable temperature, you'll get your measurements from it. So for incubator and transport incubators, we use these temperature sensors, and for overhead warmers, we make use of these plugs. The next feature we want to test on this unit is when we want to do humidity testing on an incubator to make sure that the humidity inside the temperature is not too high or too low for the baby. We make use of a humidity sensor. Again, you will see that on the label, it will tell you that it's a humidity sensor. And other than the temperature sensors, which all plug in on top here, the skin temperature, the airflow, the humidity, and the sound probes plug in on the side of the unit where your power connector is. So humidity, we just plug the unit in there. And then for the test, we place our unit back in the center of the mattress, and the position for the humidity sensor would then be the center position, center of the mattress. Airflow testing, what we want to do is we want to make sure that the fans on the inside of the unit, the airflow that goes across the baby, is not too high or too low. Meaning this airflow from the fan is what carries the temperature and it carries the humidity across. So in order to test airflow, we make use of an airflow sensor. You can see there's one with a round edge, where the other ones were, the temperature ones were longer, even though it's still also got the center pin there. Airflow also connects to the back of the unit. You can see there's airflow. We plug it in there, place our unit back. The airflow sensor also, the same as the humidity, goes to the center position. Now, two important things with the airflow sensor. Firstly, we've got to make sure what is the direction of airflow across the unit so that we turn the receiving area of the unit into that same direction, so the air will flow past our sensor. Okay? And then the second thing is make sure you've removed all the other sensors, because you do not want anything that causes turbulence around the airflow sensor. The next test we want to do is we want to make sure that the alarm sound, the sound coming from the fans of the unit, and the environmental sound outside the unit is within comfortable specifications for the baby. Because we know that whenever a baby is comfortable, healing takes place much quicker. Again, the sensor plugs in at the back. We look for the sound position. We plug it in there, put our sensor in place. You'll notice this looks like a little microphone. That's what it is. Place it into the sensor. The two tests you'll be doing on the inside of the unit will be measuring the alarm levels, sound levels inside the unit, and also the environmental sound inside the unit coming from your fans. For that, we're going to place the unit in the middle of the incubator, and we're going to close the hood. Then we've got an outside environmental test where we will be taking this unit, moving it outside of our incubator 3 meters away from the incubator and 1.5 meters above ground. From there we'll be doing the outside environmental sound testing. The last test we want to do is to make sure that anything around the baby which the baby might be able to touch, being its blankets, the mattress, or any objects around the baby, we want to make sure that that object's temperature is not above what it should be, that it will not burn your baby or be uncomfortable to your baby. And in order to do that, we've got a sensor called a K sensor. Now the K sensor is this, it's got this yellow connector, and then it's just got, it looks like just a piece of wire in front, but it's actually your temperature tip. The K sensor, you see the K type here, just plugs in there, and then you'll use a thermal compound to put on the mattress and maybe use a little plaster across it in order to keep it in place, in order to test the temperature. Or if there's a metal surface or anything around the baby, you can place it on there and put a little plaster over to keep it in position to test the temperature of that particular object. What we're going to do now is I want to go through all the buttons and all the functions of this unit and explain what the function of each of them are. So firstly, on the top here we've got our power button. If we press that, the unit will boot up. It comes up telling us the firmware version and all that. And then immediately it goes to the selection menu where I can choose what it is that I'm going to test. Is it a normal incubator? Is it a transport incubator or a radiant warmer? In order to select, I'll be using the up-down arrows. Go down to transport, radiant warmer, and if you find the one you're looking for, you press the select button. Once you press select, then the menu comes up inside that test schedule. The first one being the outside temperature, inside, and so forth. Now I'm just going to return back to the start again. Okay, so that is our main menu. On the side here, I've got the setup button. If I press that one, this is where I set up the unit. First one on top here, we can see the technician list. Now, if you are a company who has more than one technician working with a unit, and you want the technician's name to appear on the test results, or if you have one technician working on specific brands and another on a different brand, you can create profiles. So in order to add a name, you will press the select button, and then you have a cancel, a add new, and a done. If you press the F3 for add a new technician, you have the keyboard that comes up. And then by using the arrows and the select button, you can enter a name. And then F4 for done, and your new technician's name will be on the list there. Done, and then we return. Secondly, we can change the date of the unit. Thirdly, the time, the brightness, auto dim, meaning in like your cell phone, during the day and during the night, it automatically changes the screen brightness. The language, the instrument serial number, probe information. The only time you're going to use that is if something goes wrong with one of your temperature probes, for instance, and you have to replace it. Each probe has a calibration constant, and you will have to enter the new calibration constant. And then lastly, the units. If we press select, that is where we choose between meters per second or Celsius or Fahrenheit or all those units. Done. If we go back to the main menu, then general test, that is where I choose what sensors will I be using to do this test. Now we have various sensors. We have the temperature probes, which we use for the transport and for the normal incubators, or we have the temperature pugs, which are these round metal temperature probes, which we use in the overhead warmers. Or if we're not going to do temperature, we're only going to use humidity or sound, then we just go to none. Okay, now the trick here is, if we want to get out of this, you'll see that we've got a cancel and a done. But it's not a touch screen. It might be confusing in the beginning. What you'll have to do is go further down with the down arrow until you see the cancel is lighten up, and then sideways with the side arrow to go to the done, and then press select. Okay. Then after the sensor type has been chosen, you've got a sample rate, meaning how many measurements per second must the unit do. How often must the unit take a measurement? So it can be either 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 or 120 seconds. Okay. The standard is 30 seconds. Okay. Go back to our main menu. Then view save data. That is after a measurement has been done. You can go to view save data and you will have a list of the tests being performed. From there you can select it and you can view each one of them. Now, let's go to the incubator. Let's pretend we're going to be doing an incubator. If we go to the incubator, you'll see the list of tests there. But what I want to focus on now is at the bottom here, function 3 and function 4. Function 3 tells you to view test groups, and function 4 is to create test groups. Now, a lot of these tests will cause you to switch off the system, place your sensors in place, switch on the system, and wait half an hour and an hour for the unit to reach a stable temperature before you can do any measurements. Now, in order to save time, you can actually go and create a group of tests. Like for instance, the warm-up time. I can say I want to select the warm-up time, but while it's testing the warm-up time, with the configuration of probes needed for warm-up time, I might just as well also do the uniformity temperature test, and that one, the uniformity you need to do at 32 and 36 degrees. So if my incubator, the warm-up time test is set at 32 degrees, then I can also do the uniformity test at 32. I can select that, and then once again go down with the arrow and then sideways to get to the done. Same here, go sideways, done. And I can also do the stability test in the same time. So I select that one. Again, I need to choose the temperature. I'm going to use 32, and I'm also going to do it over a period of 60 minutes. That way and sideways. And then I say next. So what's going to happen now is once you press start, we're actually going to do 3 tests simultaneously. And then we're doing those 3 tests at 32 degrees, and then we can create another group for that test, for those same tests at 36 degrees. So once we've said next, the keyboard comes up and I can give that group a name. I'm just, for the sake of the presentation, just going to say it's A, B, and C, and done. Okay. So that is how you create groups. And then view single tests. That is, we're back at the beginning again, where we do the steps one by one by one by one. Okay. In the main menu, we have a choice of a normal incubator, a transport incubator, or a radiant warmer. Now, just to clarify, the radiant warmer is a unit that's got the overhead lights and that doesn't have a hood over it. So for the incubator, all we need to do is press select, then all the tests come up. You'll see if I go down with the arrow, we have 13 different tests that we can run on the incubator. Step number 1, warm-up time. What we're measuring here is we're measuring the time it takes this incubator from startup to the time where it reaches stability on temperature. So we want to know from startup until how long it takes until it stabilizes. The second one is our inside sound level. For that, we make use of a microphone inside the unit, which now will measure for us in decibels the sound coming from the fan motors inside the unit to determine whether that is a comfortable environment for the baby. Secondly, we have the inside alarm levels. That is the sound level inside the hood whenever the unit's alarms go off. So what we're going to do there is we're going to initiate an alarm in the system and then see how much different the decibels is between the inside sound level and the alarm levels. The next one is our outside alarm levels. In this case, we will be moving the unit with a microphone 3 meters away from the incubator, and we'll be closing the hood of the incubator to keep the fan noises on the inside, and we'll then measure the environmental noise outside the unit. Number 5 is our airflow velocity threshold. During this test, we'll be removing all the other sensors and we'll be placing the airflow sensor in the center of the hood and perpendicular to the airflow, and then we'll leave it and get our stable reading of what our airflow threshold is. Secondly, our infant contact surface temperature. Under infant contact surface temperature, we've got 2 temperatures that we measure there. We have the direct contact to the patient, be it material or be it a metal surface. During this test, we make use of our case sensor, and we'll be sticking that onto the material part that touches the baby to measure the temperature of the material, or we'll be sticking it onto any metal parts inside the baby's hood to measure that temperature, to make sure that when the baby touches, that it will not burn the patient. Then number 8, uniformity of temperature. What we want to know here is that whether the feet of the baby, the head of the baby, or the tummy of the baby are all at the same temperature. That we do not have a warm and a cold area inside our hood. So we'll be making use of all 5 of the sensors and then compare the temperature between the 5 of them. Stability of incubator temperature, number 9. During this test, we want to make sure that once the temperature has reached its stable temperature, that it will stay at that temperature, that it will not fluctuate up and down, that we maintain a constant temperature. Step number 10, the accuracy of the indicator. Now when we refer to indicator, we are talking about the LCD readout or the LED readout of your incubator that shows you the temperature measured by the incubator. And that we are comparing to the T5 temperature sensor inside the incubator. That also, we need to set it up and wait for the machine to reach stability. And then over a selected period, be it a half an hour or hour and a half, we then measure the stability and the accuracy of those 2 readings and we compare them. Number 11 is our relative humidity accuracy. Now, not all incubators are equipped with humidity, but for those who do, you'll follow the guidelines in your user manual, filling up your water in your unit, setting your humidity, and then again we'll wait for the unit to reach a stable temperature, and then over a period of time we then compare our humidity reading from the FLUKE unit to the humidity reading of your incubator. Step 12, the overshoot for incubator temperature. During warm-up, it will overshoot the set temperature and then return back to its set temperature. Now that overshoot should not go higher than 38 degrees Celsius. So we want to make sure that it does not exceed that, because that is not good for your baby. Temperature control accuracy. This again, we wait for the stability of the unit and we're going to compare our measured result from inside the incubator to the set result of the incubator. Just the difference between the temperature accuracy control and the accuracy of the indicator. Accuracy of the indicator is the measured value from the incubator compared to our inside temperature, and the control temperature is measured value compared to the set temperature on the controls. So just remember the difference between the 2 of them. And yeah, that is the list for the incubator. If we go back to main menu, we can then go to transport incubator, press the select button. In the transport incubator, you will see that we've got pretty much the same list as what we have in the normal incubator. If I just go down to them, you'll see the only difference we're going to have here is we've got the normal overshoot temperature measurement like we've done in the normal incubator, but then we have an overshoot of temperature for open door. Now the difference between the 2 of them, or the way of testing both of them, the overshoot, the first one, you closed the hood, you left all the tools inside, and you've switched on the machine and you wait for it to reach its temperature, and then we measure the overshoot. The overshoot with open door is once we've measured the first overshoot, we then open the incubator door for 10 minutes to let the air out while the incubator is still on, and then we close the door again, and then we measure the overshoot that might occur when the temperature tries to return back to normal again. And then number 14, we've got operating on battery power, where we measure that we disconnect the machine from AC power, we leave it on battery power for at least a half an hour, and we see how constant our temperature stays within that half an hour. That will tell us whether the batteries are able to keep the heaters running and the fans running for that period of time. And then lastly, we do an ambient temperature change. So what we do is the same way we did the stability test of the incubator. We now take it into a room where we have a 21 to 25 degrees Celsius ambient temperature, and we redo that stability temperature again to see whether in a lower temperature area whether the machine performs in the same manner. Because remember that a transport incubator will go into a hospital, outside the hospital, into an ambulance. So we have to make sure that it will operate accurately in all those conditions. Then lastly is our radiant warmer. Okay. The radiant warmer, again, we've got the outside temperature, the outside alarm levels, inside alarm levels. And then for the temperature test here, we need to reset up the whole unit.